Good morning. Ashley, are we good to go?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the Public Works Committee to order. And if we could put the info about ways to participate, that would be great. Thank you. And as you see, we continue to meet virtually. I think we know how to find their way through Zoom meetings now, but just so that you know, if you are participating as part of the public, please know that you can use the Zoom features to let us know you want to provide public comment, and we would be happy to call on you to provide comment. You can also leave a voicemail for City Council by calling 406-552-6012, and you can email council@ci.missoula.mt.us. All these meetings are recorded and can be accessed via YouTube and AMCAT. And with that, we will do a roll call, please, Ashley, for attendance.
Anderson. Becerra.
Present.
Carlino.
Present.
Contos.
Here.
Hess. Jones.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Nugent.
Here.
Savage.
Here.
Cheryl.
Present.
Vasika. West. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. We have minutes to approve from our last meeting on January 5th. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, those will stand approved. We will do a quick check on our public attendance list. Looks like Logan is in the attendee. Maybe we can move him to a panelist if he wants. No one else from the public to provide public comment. So with that, we will go to our first item on the agenda, and that is a municipal court remodel. Matt Lawson, I believe, is here to present.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Matt Lawson, City of Missoula Facilities Department, and I would like to move the City Council to approve the bid award for the municipal court remodel to Dennis Lower Construction of Missoula, Montana, as the low bidder in the amount of $210,631 at this point.
Okay, sounds good. I guess one question that is why this falls under Public Works, but I'm assuming it's because it's a public facility.
Yeah, that, and I'm kind of a creature of habit, and I've always brought everything to Public Works in the past.
Okay, I hadn't seen a remodel in Public Works before. I don't think so. I was just curious. Thank you. Go ahead, Gwen.
Sure. Hi, Matt. Thanks for the information this morning. And I just wanted to, I know we had a difficult time getting any bids. So
Correct.
how did you get more than one this time? And if so, what were the amounts? Or is it just one?
No, I got one.
Okay. All right, I would be happy to make the motion and speak to it briefly if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I'm just very grateful that we got one bid at least, and we can move forward with this. I know staff have been working on this all fall, and we're trying to have the courtrooms ready for the new judges. But that didn't come about because we literally couldn't get any bids because of the strange economic environment that we're living in right now because of the pandemic. So I'm glad we've got one finally. And I know the judges will be glad to get this going. And it also, of course, impacts all of us on council to ultimately have our chambers back as council chambers and not as a dedicated courtroom. So we're all connected in this, and I'm glad it's going forward.
Thanks, Gwen. And this is in part paid for by an ARPA grant, is that right?
I'm not sure on that. I had this funded through a CIP for FY22. What that funding was exactly, I do not have in front of me right now.
Okay. That's okay. I see. Sure. Gwen, do you have additional comment? No, okay. Dale.
Can you hear me okay? I'm on a different system at the moment.
Yep.
So I just wanted to answer your question, Mierta. This is funded out of general fund cash reserves. We have excess cash reserves over our requirement. The other thing I wanted to point out is even though we only just had one bid on this, it came in substantially less than our original architect's estimate. So this bid value, I think, the amount we have budgeted, I think we reserve $500,000 for this budget. So we have a substantial savings here as well.
Thanks, Dale. I was just going by what's on the referral about an ARPA grant award to the city stormwater utility. That's why I asked, but thanks for the clarification. Kristen, go ahead.
Thank you. Being new, I may have missed something, but I'm wondering, is there a place to see these plans and kind of like what they've put together and the general concept, or is that?
Yeah, it was all included in the RFP that was advertised and was on the city's website. I could send that to you if you'd like.
Oh, that's right. I'll go digging. I need to learn where to find this stuff. So thank you.
Yeah,
I'd miss something.
If you pull up the RFP listing, the drawings and everything are attached at the bottom.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And so we have a motion on the floor made by Gwen. We have no public in attendance to provide public comments. So we will take a roll call vote, please.
Sarah,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Thank you. That is 8 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. Thanks. That will go on our consent agenda. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
You too. Our second item on the agenda is a referral, a professional services agreement with WGM for the South Hill stormwater improvements, and Adam Marsh here to present. And I should say Adam is new to our Public Works Engineering Division. I forget your specific title, Adam, but welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I'm a new utility engineer, and I've been with the city for about 3 months now. I'm excited to be on board. It's been challenging and exciting my short time here. So the project that I'm presenting on is a ARPA funded project. we got a $2 million ARPA grant to perform some stormwater improvements in the South Hills. And as part of that ARPA grant, the city is required to provide a $200,000 match, a 10% match, assuming we spend all $2 million of the ARPA funds. This professional services agreement is to perform all of the design for that full grant. And it comes up to a large sum of $393,142.05. And this is to design 3 separate projects, which have all been bundled together because they're kind of interrelated and they all affect the South Hills stormwater system. I don't know if we can pull up the map, the project location map that was submitted as part of the meeting materials, but you should all have the ability to draw it up individually if you would like to look at it. So this work is being performed by WGM, and they were selected as one of 3 pre-qualified engineering firms for doing stormwater work. And the first phase of this project is occurring on Grandview Way. There was an earthquake.
Is there a way you can pull that map up for us? Or screen?
Is there a way for me to do that? It appears there is. Let me pull that up for you. All right, can you see the map on my screen?
Yes, thank
Cool.
you. Great.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Oh, I moved it. Let me move it back. All right. So the first phase of this project is occurring along Grandview Way. A few years back, there was an earthquake, and as a result of that earthquake, several springs appeared on private property within this loop created by Grandview Way. And those springs have caused several issues. Obviously issues for the private landowners, damage to their property, but also issues for the city. The springs continually flow out onto the public right-of-way on Rita Court, which is this small street, and Morningside Court, which is this small street. And during winter months, they ice up severely and cause both a public safety issue with slip, trips, and falls and vehicular collisions, and also damages our roadway. It requires quite a bit of maintenance and quite a bit of repair work after every season. So what we are proposing to do is extend the storm main, which currently ends at Grandview, and run it up Rita and run it up Morningside so that we have additional storm inlets to collect this water coming from the springs and get it off of the road before it causes damage and reduce the city maintenance requirements. That water will then be conveyed through the existing storm main over to a natural channel, and from there it will continue along its current path. The second phase of this project, over on the left side, is Garrett Street. So this project is to handle stormwater that moves down 55th Street and then is causing issues for the Lighthouse Baptist Church and also along Garrett Street moving down this hill. 55th Street is a fairly steep hill that moves from east to west, and Garrett is fairly steep moving to the north. So in the past, stormwater moving down 55th Street would have crossed Garrett and moved through what was previously undeveloped open land down to this natural drainage. But several years back, there was a development constructed here. The name of the development is Tanya Heights. And unfortunately, that existing natural drainage path kind of bisected the development and really decreased the value of the development for the developer. So they wanted to install a dry well and capture, collect, and infiltrate the stormwater that had been moving down 55th Street. And that was constructed as approved by the city. But unfortunately, that dry well did not perform well. The infiltration rate was not adequate to infiltrate all the stormwater moving down the hill. And rather than tear up the street and dig a much deeper hole to try and get down to the good free draining gravels, we assessed a $10,000 penalty and in lieu of replacing that dry well. So the stormwater now moves down and follows south along a very flat section of Garrett Street. Sorry, flows to the north along a flat section of Garrett Street until it hits the steeper portion, and then it takes off and runs down the hill to this point here where there's an existing storm main, and it enters the storm main and flows down to the Bitterroot. So one of the issues that we were seeing is the stormwater impacted the Lighthouse Baptist Church here. A portion of it would overflow and move through their property, and the city installed a temporary asphalt curb in that area to help mitigate the issue, but it's not a permanent solution, and it doesn't address high flow events, which will occur at some point in the future. So what we are proposing to do on Garrett Street is regrade this flat section to provide some additional steepness and help convey that water more quickly past the church. We will also install some new curb and gutter to help keep it from entering onto their property. And then we will improve the curb and gutter moving north along Garrett Street so that the water moving down that street can be conveyed efficiently without overflowing onto any of these streets that cross Garrett. The third portion of the Garrett Street improvements is to extend the storm main from Arcadia here, from Cardinal up to Arcadia, where the hill becomes less steep. So it will move down the steep portion of Garrett, enter the storm main here, and then be conveyed onto the Bitterroot. Now, one of the complicating issues is that this stormwater was not originally entering our stormwater system. And the bones of this system were constructed back in the early 2000s, and the capacity of the system has not changed since that time. So in order to offset the additional stormwater being contributed from 55th, we would like to install some new infiltration capacity in Cattail Corner. There are some other issues with Cattail Corner. The biology of the wetland is not particularly good at the moment. It's a monoculture of cattails. It's not very good habitat. It's also experienced a good bit of sedimentation over the last 20 years. The pond lacks a lot of the original detention capacity that it had. And so we are going to install some new dry wells around the perimeter of it to offset the flow from 55th Street and Garrett. And we will remove some of the accumulated sediment, regrade the wetlands so that we have a better diversity of vegetation and better wildlife habitat. Also install a forebay when the forebay serves to collect sediment that is being conveyed through the storm system and dumped into the pond so that our maintenance crews can get out of Higgins and actually park in a safe area to excavate sediment as it accumulates and prevent it from decreasing the capacity in this wetland. So those are the three portions of this project. They all kind of interrelate. The goal is to get them all designed and constructed in calendar year 22. There is a possibility that phase 3 may bleed into calendar year 23, depending on how quickly we can get all of the design parameters that we need from Garrett Street in order to inform the design in Cattail Corner, and also depending on the capacity of local contractors to perform the work in Cattail Corner in calendar year 2022. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this, most of the funding will come from the Arpa Grant, and the 10% match will come from the Stormwater Enterprise Fund via a SRF loan that we are currently applying for and have a high confidence in getting.
Great.
That's kind of the end of my spiel.
Thanks, Adam. Let's go ahead and take some questions from council. Daniel, go ahead.
Thanks. So this all looks like projects that need done, but I'm still worried about people struggling economically from the pandemic. And I'm curious why we chose to use ARPA funds for this.
We chose to use ARPA funds for this because we kind of have to. So as there are different pots of ARPA money. One of the pots is kind of given to the city to use as we need. And then there are competitive grants, and those grants we apply for a particular project. And these ARPA funds came from a competitive grant. The grant was initially a $4 million application. And as part of that, we were going to do a lot more with the storm main in Garrett. We were going to run it all the way to the top. But they only awarded 2 of those 4 million that we requested. So we have to use this money for the South Hills stormwater. We don't have a choice to use it elsewhere in the city.
Does that answer your question, Daniel?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Amber.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that clarification on ARPA funds. Also, just wanted to say this was a great presentation. Sometimes some of these can be confusing as to why we're doing different projects and why we're prioritizing those projects. And I think you made that really clear. So thank you and welcome aboard. I'd be happy to I think these are important, obviously important things to get done in the city. And I would be happy to make the recommended motion.
Great. Thanks, Amber. Next, Stacy.
Thanks so much for that presentation. I'm really excited to see that we're using the ARPA dollars for this project, especially the Rita Court project, the Hillview Rita Court, however we want to. And I just want to clarify because I attended a meeting with the neighborhood this summer and Public Works sort of introducing them to the concept of a special improvement district. Obviously, this was before our application for the ARPA funding, which I'm thrilled that we got, but just wanted to clarify, does this now cover the entire cost of the project, thus leaving no SID needed for those particular homeowners?
That's correct. The ARPA funds, since we received the ARPA grant, we elected for primarily 2 reasons not to pursue an SID. The main reason being the ARPA grant. We now have this large pot of money that we can dip into to perform the work. And then we considered using, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just like, that's outstanding because there was it's a need that is severe up there. It's like an ice skating rink this time of year on those streets, but incredibly hazardous. And do we know the priority? Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Adam. Of the projects in terms of work completed.
In terms of work completed, the priority, the first one that we will be requesting WGM perform is the Rita Court Morningside project. Then the Garrett Street drainage improvements. And we need to perform Garrett Street prior to Cattail Corner because some of the design parameters, specifically the amount of stormwater that is being contributed from 55th Street, we need to know that volume so we can accurately offset that amount of stormwater in Cattail Corner. So Rita Morningside is priority 1, Garrett Street is priority 2, and then Cattail Corner is priority 3.
Madam Chair, may I have a follow-up?
Yep.
I see Logan has his hand raised and might have something to add. But do we know, is there anything that we're able to do in the interim right now to help offset the fact that there's the ice buildup and this hazard that it creates until springtime when we can actually do this project?
Unfortunately, there's not much that we can do now. We are continuing to do the regular maintenance that we've done in past years to try and mitigate those issues. But in terms of structural changes, no, there's nothing that I'm aware of that can be done between now and this summer.
Thank you.
Logan, do you have anything to add?
narrow view of
Sorry about this.
that impact our water.
I thought I had a quiet background and then all of a sudden there was noise. So, yeah, I just wanted to add a kind of a clarification, the SID, I think we still sort of feel like it would have made sense to have these neighbors participate in some way. I mean, this is not the only place like this where there's private property springs in the South Hills that are discharging to city streets. And so, so we've kind of abandoned the idea of the SID, I think mostly just because of the complications around getting an SID formed and using it as potential matching funds. So, I mean, one thing Jeremy has asked that we do, and Adam probably wasn't even aware of this, he's asked that we at least reach out to our rate consultant, FCS, and consider whether there's some kind of charge we could, consider putting in place for new connections to the existing storm drain infrastructure that kind of the city has invested in over time. So I guess I just want to say it's something we don't know the answer to, and actually have a meeting here in about a half hour with them. So, yeah, the project's moving forward without an SID, but that is something that Jeremy has asked us to research. So just wanted folks to be aware of that.
Great, appreciate that. John, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Adam, appreciate your work on all of this. I know you're fairly new to this particular situation. I've lived up on the South Hills now for 25 years, so I'm pretty familiar with that intersection. And I was curious as to why there isn't a connection to where this water used to drain. I understand they put a new development in there. The storm drainage capacity was extremely limited. All the water ran into the Baptist church. And now it looks like there's a proposed go all the way down the street. Was there some way that the water could continue to go where it used to go?
We looked into that and we didn't find a good way to do it. Unfortunately, that new development, Tanya Heights, really cut off all of those good drainage paths. And in order to reestablish them, we would need to get easements across private property, including some residential homes. And that seems like a very difficult and drawn out process, and probably something that we can't do feasibly. Logan, if you have more to say on that one, I'd welcome some historic feedback on it.
Yeah, I would agree with what Adam just said. I mean, the reality is, this private property was receiving urban runoff, street runoff, and we didn't necessarily have a right to keep doing that. So we really needed to find a different path. And this, the street gets the water to the storm drain system that is kind of designed to handle this. So yeah, it would be nice if we had, undeveloped lands that we could, disperse the runoff onto rather than into the river, but that's just not the nature of our urban developed area.
Right. Was that just not thought of before this project was given the go ahead?
Are you referring to the complications with stormwater caused by
Right.
Tanya Heights?
Right.
My understanding of it is, at the time Tanya Heights was being proposed, reviewed, and then constructed, the dry well was anticipated to have adequate infiltration capacity to handle the runoff. And when that did not occur, we were kind of left without many options.
And if I could add, I mean, I think Public Works has done a lot to really step up our efforts in what people have to submit to determine or to show that their storm drainage is going to be handled appropriately on site. So, it's probably something that was missed years ago when this was developed, but I do feel really confident that we've got rules in place now, and we've got more staff and working for us now that are experts on stormwater, that this type of situation I think we would catch in the future.
Sure. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Heidi, go ahead.
So I was wondering how exactly the volume of stormwater is calculated. So I heard you say that one part, like one project has to be built first so that the volume of stormwater can accurately be calculated for maybe it was the Cattail Corner, like a later step down the hill. And I was wondering, I guess, is there some sort of volume buffering built in? Because I know one of the things we'll probably see is, heavier rains maybe and drier soil, so we're not going to get the same absorption rate. And I could see, just having more runoff in the future. So I'm wondering how much your calculations buffered, for maybe more runoff or, depending on how our rainfall events change.
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess there are a couple pieces of it. There are a number of ways to calculate runoff. Most likely they will end up using the Nrcs runoff curve number method. And that assigns a curve number to different types of land use. So a street has a curve number of 98, which means it's almost totally impervious. A curve number of 100, all the rainwater that falls runs off. A curve number of 0, all of the rainwater that falls infiltrates. So streets, roofs, driveways, sidewalks, those are all a curve number of 98 or higher. And then open areas have curve numbers that change depending on what the underlying soil type is. So the consultant will take a look at the drainage area and then assign curve numbers based on the land use that is currently there, and any undeveloped area will be assigned a curve number for kind of the anticipated fully developed use. It does not account for any potential climate changes. Like you were saying, drier soils that have generally less infiltration capacity. That's not included in there. There's no real good way of quantifying that moving forward. And it's just not the standard procedure to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. Any other questions from council members? Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, if we're ready for it, I would make the motion.
We already have a motion. Amber beat you to it.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We will go to public comment on the motion. Mr. Larson.
Yes, Matt Larson, Ward 3, lifelong resident of Missoula. As I recall, quite a bit of the map that's shown is in the 100-year floodplain, like Cattail Corner, that area. So what use is putting in more and more infrastructure to drain an area that's in the floodplain? I just don't see what we're opening up a can of worms as far as the maintenance of all this stuff. Like, yes, it's cool we can get an Arpa grant to put it in, but then you're going to have to do an SID to keep it going. Is maintenance built into this $400,000 expenditure? And could we be spending this money in a better fashion? To me, it's like if you build in the floodplain, it's sort of like building in the forest. There might be a forest fire, there might be a flood in the 100-year floodplain. So it's just kind of it falls back on the buyer beware type of state that we live in, where no one's forcing these people to buy housing in the South Hills in the floodplain, but now their neighbors are potentially going to be forced to pay for that pitfall, right? Because there may be housing that might not be in the direct stream of some of these streams that opened up apparently magically from an earthquake. And again, this points to like the kind of lunacy of opening up this can of worms. Is like, what happens when there's another earthquake and more of these springs pop out here? It's kind of like not the rest of the city's problem that this stuff is dumping into a church, and it's totally an example of negligence in planning of this when you're citing a development as the main reason that split the drainage correctly. So like I don't know. I really don't think that this is a wise expenditure of money. I'd like to know if Mike Nugent has any real estate listings in the South Hills and might have a conflict of interest in voting on this as well. But that's just me. I know he works at Berkshire Hathaway, and they're quite a
Point of
prominent
order.
real estate
Point of
agency.
order.
Thank
That's
you,
not an attack. That's a
Mr.
fact.
Larson.
That's a fact.
That's
That's not a personal attack.
your
That's a fact.
conversation.
Not
please.
germane.
Okay.
I'm happy to respond if I just provide a.
Go ahead.
All right. So there were a number of points raised in there, and probably the one that I'd like to hit on most is the point about the 100-year floodplain. And the improvements in Cattail Corner are precisely to help mitigate the floodplain. So this stormwater system was designed back in about 1999 and constructed around 2003. And that followed a historic flood that came down out of Patty Canyon. There was extensive flooding in the city. And as in response to that flood event, the city spent a lot of time and effort and money constructing this system in order to better convey that stormwater from the drainages in the hills out to the Bitterroot River. And over time, due to the difficulties of maintaining Cattail Corner, some sediment has accumulated in there. Some of the existing infiltration capacity, some of the existing dry wells have kind of sedimented over, and they no longer perform like they did. So we want to restore that capacity and improve it so that when the next major flood comes down, we can actually get more of that water from the surface into the groundwater and do it earlier. So that's the purpose of tackling this in Cattail Corner and working in the floodplain. This is not commercial or residential real estate or developments. This is strictly to help improve the performance of our system in the event of a 100-year flood.
Great. That's a great answer. I'm glad you pointed out the floodplain designation issue this on the map. Heidi.
Can I just make a general comment maybe for education?
Sure.
I just wanted to remind everyone that our stormwater utility is incredibly young. I think we're 2 years in. I'm not entirely sure if that's the right time period, but until we actually created a utility, most of our stormwater system across the whole city saw relatively little maintenance just because it was done when other, when people that had other main jobs had time. And so with a utility, we now have the ability to have regular scheduled maintenance on our entire system. And I think that, is reflected in all of these improvements that we're able to make now. So I just want to remind folks just how incredibly new this utility is, and just that we can do a lot more than we used to be able to do.
That's a good point, Heidi. Thanks. Okay. We have had, we have a motion on the floor and have had public comment on the motion. So let's go ahead and take a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. And thank you, Adam, for bringing this forward.
My pleasure.
And we will move to our next and final item on the agenda, and that is a professional services agreement, an amendment, third amendment with WGN Group for the Mullen Road reconstruction project. And Kevin Slowett.
Thank you. Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. I am going to share my screen just to give everybody an idea of where this project is currently, where this project is located. So are you seeing the map? So
Not yet.
No? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't actually press the button to share. How about now?
Now we can, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So George Elmer Drive or Chuckwagon Drive is right here. It was constructed a couple years ago, and I'll zoom in just briefly. This road was not able to be connected to Mullen Road, and that's really the project here. In front of you now is to widen Mullen Road and make this intersection connection instead of doing the shoe fly that we did over to Roundup Drive a couple years ago when that Chuckwagon Drive roadway project was completed. So that's the project. And what we're doing is widening Mullen Road in this area to fit a two-way center turn lane, so folks can get into that two-way center turn lane out of the driving lane to make turns into the driveways on the south side of the road, and then for traffic that is coming from the west to make left turns onto Chuckwagon Drive. So the reason for the project is that that's what we started with. There's been some changes to the project, and that's why this amendment is coming to you now. So we're still going to widen on the north side of the road in the vicinity of the new intersection with Chuckwagon Drive to Mullen. And that's due to a right turn deceleration lane to also essentially get out of the through lane. And then since we did that, there's an existing pathway, the Mullen Road Trail that's along Mullen Road here, that this project is going to impact. And so the trail needs to move north. The trail, since it is being moved north, it needs to be widened to 10 feet. So that's another aspect of the change in design scope and a reason for this amendment. And then finally, we have a build grant that is making improvements to George Elmer Drive and the intersection of George Elmer Drive and Mullen Road. It's a roundabout. Coming out of that roundabout, there's 3 lanes, a drive lane in each direction, a two-way center turn lane, so folks can make that turn on Marie Drive. And then there's a 3-lane road section over in this area of Mullen Road to the west of this project that we thought that if we had a 3-lane here and a 3-lane coming out of George Elmer Drive and a 3-lane over here, that we ought to just connect those facilities instead of making them, the same, making it all 3-lane from in between George Elmer Drive and where it leaves off here somewhere around Josephine Avenue. So those are the changes in the design work that needs to be done and are included in this amendment. So I ask that you approve this and authorize the mayor to sign it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kevin. Let's quickly look here. John, go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin, appreciate the talk. I'm pretty familiar with the chuck wagon off of Mullen. I use that once a week. If you could help me out understand why it's necessary to connect that road and make it straight as opposed to what it is right now. It seems to what it is right now works well. There is a turn area there where you can pull off to the right and turn onto that road. And yet you're proposing something straighter. Is that just for aesthetics? I mean, can you help me out with that one?
Yeah, the connection of Chuckwagon Drive was to Mullen Road, and a new intersection was required by MDT. MDT is the owner of Mullen Road, and so when Chuckwagon Drive was contemplated with the development and looking to connect to Mullen Road, it needed its own connection, and MDT required additional facilities along Mullen Road to make that new connection safe. So that's why the widening on Chuckwagon or on Mullen Road is occurring. So it's one thing leads to another type, but we've been moving ahead. We're at about a 90% design level now, and we're looking to finalize that design in order to move the project into bidding and construction phases here fairly soon.
So for the most part, it's a done deal.
Yes, it does need to happen.
Thanks.
Amber.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Kevin, for that clarification. I'm just curious. I can't remember exactly where all these streets and all these projects out there are come together, and I'm curious about kind of anticipated future needs for traffic mitigation out there and traffic control, and if this is this going to be sufficient for the traffic once it's built out, to what we've approved so far? I realize I'm asking you to predict the future a little bit, but I'm just kind of wanting your perspective on that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I believe so. I believe with the improvements at this future intersection, Chuckwagon and Mullen, that left turning traffic from Mullen on to Chuckwagon has a safe place to be in order to stage before they make that left turn. George Elmer Drive is going to be a roundabout, going to be designed according to existing and future traffic volume. So yeah, with these improvements that the Mullen build and that is a city county project, and then this city project here, Chuckwagon and Mullen, it will meet the needs of the residents now and future residents in the future. So I think the improvements that we're making will stand the test of time.
Thanks, Kevin. And thanks, Amber, for that question. Heidi.
So I have a somewhat related question. So I was wondering how a future Hiawatha trail connection would potentially intersect with this, because I assume if that gets built out, it would connect to the Mullen Trail. And that seems like an awfully wide street to cross. So I was wondering if there is a plan for funneling bikers or pedestrians from the future Hiawatha Trail connection across Mullen.
I haven't anticipated that yet. I don't know if our transportation planning staff has discussed that with other folks in the community. I think if there was a crossing of the Hiawatha Trail, a future Hiawatha Trail at Mullen Road, it could either potentially be grade separated, or if not, it could be reinforced with lighting and rectangular rapid flashing beacons that would help support safety for trail users that would cross at that location. But that's not currently a part of this project, but I think it could be, readily implemented.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? We still need a motion on this item, I believe. Stacy.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm happy to make the recommended motion to amend the service agreement.
Great, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Mr. Larson, your hand's up. Go ahead and provide comment about the motion and the motion only, please.
I see that there's like 4 or 5 changes to this. If you look at the agreement, the initial charge was like $140,000, and then there's like 3 or 4 charges subsequent to that are, in the thousands of dollars. I'm just wondering, how many times is this plan going to change after this?
Would you like me to answer that?
Thank you. Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. Likely none. I think where we're at now with this project being close to being fully designed, we're not anticipating any other amendments. We do have additional engineering scope of services with construction side of things. And if construction happens to go longer or anticipate any unforeseen issues during construction, there might be a potential amendment for construction services, but we don't anticipate any more at this time.
Thanks for that, Kevin. And yeah, I don't remember many projects that didn't have many amendments, especially projects that are of this magnitude or even bigger. I think it's expected as things change to have those amendments come through City Council. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and we have heard public comment. So we will take a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Anderson?
Yes.
Becerra?
Yes.
Carlino?
Yes.
Contos?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Nugent?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
That is 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. This too will be on our consent agenda. Thank you, Kevin, for bringing this forward. I'm excited to see this work happen. That was our last item on the agenda. So with that, we would be adjourned. Thanks, everyone.